Right then, ladies and gents, welcome to episode 2 of the In the Trenches podcast. Today, we have Liam Casey. Liam, thanks for being here and giving us your time.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. I'm super excited for this. This is probably one of the most excited podcast episodes I have coming up. And the reason for it is I genuinely believe, I've spoken to so many people who are just starting their agency all the way up to scaling. And I genuinely believe there's this massive lie that's kind of told in our industry and our space that if you're starting an agency, you have to do Facebook ads or some service like that, and you have to do it for e-com businesses. Like everyone who starts, e-com is the niche. And I genuinely think that a lot of the local businesses get thrown aside as being not scalable, not attractive, they don't work, you can't make money. And so Liam's niche is real estate agents. And he's built a massively successful agency. So I genuinely think this will be a good testament to you don't have to be doing e-com, because I think e-com is the worst niche to start out if you're just getting started, because there's so much complexities and so much saturation in it, at least from what I've seen. So general areas that I want to touch on in this episode is first your story quickly and why you chose real estate. Then we'll get into how you can get clients specifically for that niche. I've got a bunch of questions on service delivery and things, and then kind of what you're doing next to scale and move up. And finally, we end off every episode with 3 rapid questions. So I think let's just start by, Liam, if you give us a quick summary of your story, how you got into SMMA, if you did drop shipping or something else before, and we'll start there.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, firstly, thank you so much for having me. I love doing these and just having cool conversations with other agency owners. But I kind of got into SMMA, I think pretty much similar to the way most people get into a lot of the make money online business models. Just kind of I feel like most people that get into the space generally have an underlying kind of belief that they want to achieve more, and they want to do it differently, or they want to do something for themselves, and they want to have the option for not being capped with their earning potential, want to have time and location freedom. And so I just align with all of those just core beliefs and standards for myself. But early on, didn't know where to direct that, or what model was I didn't really understand business models whatsoever. I didn't know what was going to make that happen. And I was about 18 at the time, when I first kind of got serious about looking into starting some kind of online business. And it was early to mid 2018. I think it was early 2018 when I first kind of stumbled upon SMMA and went down the SMMA YouTube rabbit hole of just watching videos and seeing different YouTubers and seeing other people doing it. And that's kind of around when Ty Lopez was first blowing up with with the Here in My Garage ad. And
I was just about to say it. Here in My Garage, that's and knowledge.
Yeah, that's right. And so it was all that was kind of 2017, when that was all popping up. And so I think that's when it definitely wasn't that planned. I'd always been into business and entrepreneurship and passionate about marketing, even in high school, and things like that. But I just didn't really I originally thought that I was going to kind of go down more of a traditional route of, working in some kind of company. But I was always generally interested in business. So and then I went to university and I did a degree and studied full time at uni and was doing SMMA kind of part-time and dabbled in it part-time while I was at university. And so it was around mid 2018 when I started taking it really seriously and did the first few courses and just started studying it heavily and giving it a go. And then I was kind of executing on it part-time for about a year and a half. And yeah, by the time, because I was still studying full-time and I'd gotten far along enough in my degree that it didn't make sense to drop out, because I was
so you graduated.
So I graduated and I was making, because by the time I graduated, I wasn't doing super well with the agency, but I was doing about 12 to 15K a month, and was that was pretty much all profit, because I was doing it mostly myself and had a VA. And so going from being a broke uni student to making 15 grand a month, mostly profit, I was pretty happy with that. And that was life-changing, just that transition. But that obviously I kind of validated the business model before I finished uni. And so I knew that I was going into that I was going to keep pursuing that. And then, yeah, as soon as I finished, I went into it full time and just like, and was always in real estate from the get-go as well. And I literally just have been doing it ever since for just over 4 years now. And yeah.
Got it. And just to backtrack on that, so what degree did you end up like completing?
It was a business management degree majoring in advertising and international business. So it was actually pretty like relevant to what I'm doing right now. But
yeah,
they kind of teach it more from the perspective of if you're going to be like a management consultant in like a big four consulting firm, or be an executive in like a corporate advertising agency, not like an entrepreneur, not from an entrepreneurship standpoint or being a business owner or scaling a startup whatsoever. But it's still like I don't dismiss like going to university, and I don't like feel like it was a waste of time at all.
That was going to be my next question. Like, okay, so you studied business, kind of majored in advertising, which perfectly aligned with what you ended up doing. On a day-to-day basis, do you actually use anything you learned? Or do you think you could have got everything through like a program, mastermind course, or whatever in, 3 months instead of however many years you studied for?
Yeah, so I don't think like I wouldn't recommend like if you want to be like a marketing agency owner that you should do a business and advertising degree. But I think that the fact that I have done it, because I think that like I didn't have clarity around what I wanted to do when I was like starting out and like making the decision to going to uni. So it's not like I was gonna do anything differently. But I think in retrospect, the fact that I'd have that experience, I think I've got like a unique skill set that most people don't, having that traditional education in those fields. Because it's still very, very valuable, and it's a different perspective than like the typical kind of like make money online digital marketing type programs. And I definitely use, it's not like specific things that I'm like using on a regular basis, but I think it's just like an overall kind of perspective and like bank of knowledge that gets applied in different areas.
Yeah, I think also just having exposure to something structured and then bringing it into something unstructured where you're creating everything from scratch. That's where, because I've like got some parallels to that, at least in my life. Right. So let's move forward then. Why real estate? Out of all the niches you can pick, like, do you care about real estate? Like, because usually people have a passion for it, or they want to do it, or their family. Like, why that niche? Right then, quick one, guys. If you are enjoying this episode, please go ahead and subscribe here on YouTube, or subscribe if you're listening on Spotify, Apple, pretty much anywhere. It really does just help get these episodes to more people so that we can help more founders who are in the trenches. And it also means that you'll get the notification whenever new episodes come out, so you can be one of the first to listen and watch them. And I'm literally looking at the guest lineup right now, and we have some incredible guests lined up. So trust me, I don't think you'll be disappointed. And with that said, let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, I honestly don't like have a passion for real estate. I've like, and especially not initially. I've kind of grown to have definitely more interest in real estate from like a personal wealth creation perspective, and like being interested in like wanting to grow a real estate portfolio and kind of understanding real estate more. But initially it was purely just like in the same way that like why I chose SMMA in the first place. Like I had looked at like a bunch of other business models, like kind of stumbled across drop shipping, stumbled across Amazon FBA, affiliate marketing, like all those other business models. And SMMA was the first one that kind of just clicked with me, where I was like, it made sense. I was like, I'm selling a service, I'm charging a monthly retainer, like I've got a team, they're fulfilling it, and like I can, stack clients, I'm making money. Like it just made sense to me, the business model. And like the first few courses that I went through, they would kind of suggest niches, and real estate was the first one that just made sense to me in terms of like, it's a high ticket transaction. Like I get a lead, they, call them up, they get a sale. It's worth between 10 to 30K if they make a sale. If I want to be like justifying like a $1,500 to $2,000 per month retainer, like the revenue has to be there on the back end for the client. And like in the early days of SMMA, it was like dentists, it was gyms, it was restaurants, and like dentistry, like dentists like didn't really like, that's a really good niche, but that just like didn't really interest me. Real estate, just gyms, like low ticket, didn't make sense. Restaurants, super low ticket, low profit margins, didn't make sense. And real estate was like, yeah, okay, like they're making a lot of money off these sales. That makes sense for me. That was literally like, that was the thought process. That's all it was. And yeah, then I just stuck with it.
Got it. I mean, I think that's entirely true. I think one of the key ingredients for a niche is make sure you're selling something that is the easier it is to get a return on what they're paying you, the easier it is to keep them as a client. So if you're selling something for like $20, very difficult because you got to do it at scale. The reason that I chose ecom instead of one of those spaces is because at least with ecom, I'm fully in control over the sale. Whereas with some of those other things, you delegate it, which will be one of my questions coming up. But I just want to focus on the niche more. You're interesting as well because you started in Australia, which is one of the, I think, least talked about countries, kind of, when it comes to like the space in general. I think like everyone is like US, Canada, at least on YouTube and things. And so what I want to ask is, if you started from scratch at the same time period in the US, UK, whatever, do you think it would have been more difficult than the journey you went on because you were in a market that's not kind of at the forefront? You know, I think Australia, Canada, these places lag behind some of the others in terms of competition and growth.
I think, I mean, the Australian market in general is very similar to the US because it's a Western culture and society. Like everyone, like it's very similar in a lot of senses, but in terms of like business practice, it's definitely like mostly all the time about 3 to 5 years behind in most industries. And I like actually picked up on that like at a quite a young age because my dad is a vet and he like has vet hospitals here in Australia, and he's originally from the US, and we would like go back and forth from the US and Australia almost every second year, and he would go to like veterinary conferences in the US and kind of like, I remember it was just always a thing that he would talk about, like how the US is always ahead of Australia. And then I kind of started to pick up on that across other industries. But in all honesty, I don't think it affected my growth or my progress whatsoever. One, because I think social media itself is something that it was pretty like, it got adoption pretty evenly across like Western cultures, I guess, Western societies or most countries in general. And I think that most like first world countries, if you're starting out, it's beneficial to prioritize servicing like your local market, because like I always think about like when you're starting out, you want to stack the odds in your favor as much as possible based on just like what your current situation is. And I think there's just like a significantly increased base level of like rapport and trust when you're selling to your own people, and just like someone from your own country that makes it easier to just build trust and sell to someone and understand them. And so I don't think it held me back.
I agree with that 100%, especially if you can do in-person meetings, like for your first 1 to 2 clients. It's quite funny because I got my first clients in Sydney, literally doing door-to-door knocking. Like I would like go to e-com stores and be like, hey, do you have a website? This is like 3-4 years ago, which is crazy. Cool. Okay, so the next thing that I kind of want to get out of you is I think a lot of people misunderstand or underestimate, and I think that this is YouTube's fault, but they misunderstand the agency timeline in terms of like revenue expectations, growth expectations, year 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And most people have this blurred expectation that they start and 90 days later, you know, they've got a 100K per month business, and then they've got to be aiming for 7 figures, et cetera, et cetera. So I'd be very curious to hear like years 1 through 5, because that's what I think you're at, like how growth has changed, how revenue has changed, because usually it's like quite slow in the beginning. And then it suddenly like goes exponential. And then looking at that 5-year timeline, I also want to hear kind of your experience through COVID, because, you know, for me, that was amazing. Ecom businesses saw best time ever to run ads and whatever. Real estate, I imagine it was different. And I don't know like how you navigated that, but I think that would be something people would get interest from. So
no, 100%. Yeah, definitely. Like that is definitely YouTube's fault just like wanting to create the clickbaity thumbnails. Is like this 8-year-old went this 8-year-old got to 100K a month in SMMA in 12 seconds.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like from day one, like when I first like, did the first course and like started executing, it probably took me 6 months to actually get my first paying client. Maybe 5 months to get my first like paying client. And then I'm talking about from like 5 to 6 months from like the timeline of when I like actually watched the first course video. And from then, like all I was doing was cold calling and to get in-person meetings, and then like closing them in an in-person meeting. And just doing that, like I got my first 7 paying clients and was making about like 8 to 10K a month within the first year of doing SMMA. And mind you as well, like which is most people's scenario, like most people are doing something as well on the side. Either they're working, either they're at school, either they're at university, they've got a full or a part-time job. And so for my first full 2 years of like agency, like executing the agency, I was either like I was at university. And so it was always part-time. And so that was, I kind of scaled to around like the 8 to 10K per mark, and then kind of maxed out at like 15K when I was still at university, managing all the clients myself. And yeah, so that's was like the first year and a half was me at like the 12 to 15K mark. And then first year, like, so which would be year 3, doing it full time, or like year 2.5, got to about like 25K per month, like with a VA, still doing most of it myself, having just like a virtual assistant doing admin, and then like getting outreach off my plate and just like getting all clients through organic outreach. And then was just kind of like a slow growth for the next about year and a half to get to about like 40 to 50K per month. And then it's only been in the last probably like 8 to 10 months, where we had a big increase of growth once we started like building a sales team and scaling with paid ads. And that's when like we've recently hit around like 80 to 83K per month.
Got it. So kind of like a 5-year journey versus a 5-minute journey that I think people underestimate.
Yeah.
That actually opens up a can of worms. So a lot of times when I see people starting agencies, they always want to outsource as quickly as possible. And I think there's an argument for both, right? An argument for outsource as quickly as possible, but also an argument for you have to do some of the stuff yourself so that number one, like what's actually happening. And number two, in the beginning, usually your first couple of clients don't pay you the most, right? So you want to protect your margin. And if you're throwing money away as quickly as possible. So there's kind of an argument for both sides. I am kind of of the opinion that I genuinely think you should master the service yourself at a small level, get some case studies, retain the profit so you can reinvest in better people later and potentially marketing, and flesh out the systems yourself, because it's hard to design systems around something you have no idea how it works, if it works, et cetera, et cetera. And I also think it's hard to hire people for something you don't understand. Like if you've never run an ad before, hard to hire people to run ads because how do you know if they're good or not? But a lot of people have opposing opinions. So I'm curious what your opinion is.
So I think you have to, it's different depending on your business stage. And like, I remember listening to watching one of Alex Hormozi's Instagram lives, and like someone asked him a question. It's like, how do you build a good sales team? And his answer was, hire someone that's built a good sales team. And it's like so simple, but so obvious. But you've only got the luxury of hiring A players when you've got the cash flow and the stability to support that. And I think it sets a bad precedent if you're always having to like master the area of your business that you need to like get to the next level, because then you're always the smartest person in the business. You're always the bottleneck. And that doesn't scale. But I think it's like, especially when you're starting, like in retrospect, I'm definitely for like being on the tools and being in the trenches, like that's the name of the podcast, and doing the thing yourself, and like, and being like having your ear to the market and like, you know, being in touch with clients and actually seeing the ins and outs of like what you're doing. But in retrospect, I would have like outsourced a lot quicker than I did. It definitely took me way too long to kind of bite the bullet and like, you know, sacrifice profitability to bring on the team member to like, just whatever it was, like it just didn't click with me, like that kind of that lesson of you have to bring people on, like you have to hire team members, you have to like give some away. But I think for a lot of people, like I had a lot of resistance to that, and that helped. Like I could have scaled way quicker if I got over that kind of like entitled entrepreneur syndrome of like, I'm the only person that can like do this in the business. And I think when you're when you do that for too long and you're doing everything for too long, it's easy to build up that sentiment of like, I know how to do all of this stuff. Like I can't, like, there's not someone else that could do this on the team for me. It's too complicated. I've been doing it for too long, like all those kinds of beliefs. So like ideally, I think the best way to do it is like launch a beta offer of like your service, just like whatever the minimum viable version of that service is, fulfill it like all yourself for like your first 3 to 5 clients, just understand it to a good level, like get some good case studies, and then scale it, and then get like based on that leverage and based on that social proof and those results, build a client acquisition system around that where you can get consistent like lead flow and inbound clients, and then start to assemble a team to manage fulfillment and grow from there. And you only really need probably like those first like 3 to 5 clients just to like validate, get proof of concept, just like see what it's like actually fulfilling the service, understanding the strategy. And then I think that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, no, I love that. That kind of model, because I think the main thing is set an objective, right? Like, you know, when I recently just launched a new service, it was, I will fulfill the first 3 clients myself, but I won't fulfill clients after that. Because if you don't set that like goal or that limit, it can go, like you said, into this thing where you do like everything. I just naturally see like most people who start out are usually broke, right? Or not broke, but you know, they don't have big cash flow. And I think doing some things yourself is better than hiring really crap people, because those are all you can afford. It's an interesting way to get into it.
Yeah, and I had no money when I started. I had like literally, like I was a broke uni student living off $350 a week. I had like literally zero money in my bank account at some point. So yeah, like it can be done from scratch, and that's how you should do it.
Cool. Right, let's shift into like getting clients. Let's talk about that. So you got your first client in person, right? Like going to an in-person meeting. So did I. And I think that the industry has kind of moved away from this idea of like cold calling and like door knocking and things. Now for e-com businesses and info businesses, because that's what most people look at, it's very difficult to do that, right? Like you can't just find them. But dentists, you know, real estate agents, you know, you can do that on Google Maps, and you can pretty much fill your pipe, at least for the day, to go knocking. And I'm curious, what do you think to that as a method for getting your first, I understand it doesn't scale, but for someone who's trying to get their first 1 to 5 clients?
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, it comes back to that concept of like stacking the odds in your favor. It was like, my mentality was, I don't like sales. I'm not good at it. Like I'm scared of it. And so what can I do that's going to make it, other than like getting better at sales, which I know is going to take time, which isn't going to happen overnight. Like what can I do to increase the chances that I'm going to be able to close clients? And like my thought process was, well, it's way easier for someone to commit to a sales appointment if you're going to them and you're not inconveniencing them whatsoever. You're going to their office. And 2, it's shows like more, I think it's like, it just shows more how serious you are if you're like showing up to someone's like in person to someone's office. And it's way harder to say no to someone like in person, because it's way more personable, and you've shown like some effort and commitment that like you're there and you've taken the time to like go to a location. And so that was like my mentality, that I thought that just like the context of an in-person meeting significantly stacked the odds in your favor to make it easier to sign clients, even if I was atrocious at sales, which I would have been like when I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, I remember my first few meetings, I was like actually like reading off a sales script like in the meeting. Like I was so bad. So I think like it doesn't have to be just like, I think you can apply that same concept to like on an ongoing basis in all areas of sales. But I think definitely getting your first few clients, I think it makes it easier. Like all I did was I would just call up as many real estate agencies as I could in like a proximity where I could drive to them, ask for an in-person meeting, show up, do my sales presentation, and they either closed yes or no. And it worked. Like, yeah, I got my first 7 clients. I got the first 7 clients like that, and it got momentum to just get some cash flow, give my, first chances to get good results, create the case studies. And then every other method that like client acquisition method, like organic outbound, like content creation, like, paid ads, you need either like social proof or like to make like case studies to make those methods work, or you need the experience of actually like fulfilling the service for those clients and actually like speaking to clients to make the other methods work as well. Like, for example, like content or like even organic outbound. Like if you don't understand the client, you don't understand their language, if you don't like haven't actually fulfilled them, then you're not going to be able to come up with any good scripts, or you're not going to be able to create any good content, or you can't run ads if you don't have if you don't have any testimonials, you don't have any social proof or case studies. So I think it's a good way to get started for sure.
The way I've always looked at it is I like your concept of stacking the odds in your favor, which I think is 100% true. But what I've always looked at it is like, how can I get feedback the quickest? Because the thing with all the other methods, ads, outreach, content, it's a pretty delayed feedback loop, right? Whereas if you just like phone people, you're going to get a yes or no to a meeting like there, right? The same as if you walk into their office, which I think is substantially easier than if you go some of the outreach. Now, it doesn't scale, agreed, like the other methods are better, but just like in the beginning, I love the concept of if you have no leverage in terms of cash, case studies, or knowledge, your only leverage is your time and your body, right? So like show up, like knock on doors and these things. Like I actually have an idea I want to run past you, right? So I speak to so many people in the space, and this is like one big topic, like outreach. And I've always thought if I was to start a new agency in the local space after real estate, one of the things I would do is I found this service. I think someone told me about this a while ago. I'm curious if you think it would work. I found this service where they basically write handmade letters, but then they also give you these physical plastic little things, right? So, and it's cheap, it's like $3. So there's like a plastic foot, like when you assemble a body, like in, biology class, there's all those little like hearts, like plastic ones.
Yeah.
The plastic little foot. And I was going to write a nice letter, and it's handwritten for like $3 and mail these out to all the real estate agents in my city. And it basically would say, hey, I got my foot in the door, right? Because there's a little plastic foot. I'd love to chat with you, XYZ, here's my number, send me an email, whatever. And my concept was, well, if I do that, first of all, it's like $3-5 for that, which you will not get a cost per lead on ads. So like it works. Secondly, it's heavily personalized. When someone receives it in the mail, they're going to think it's like a package because it's like lumpy, because it's got like the foot, and it's a little bit of humor, right? And so I always thought that's what I would do if I was trying to get clients. I'm curious what you think about it.
100%. I think creative things like that like work so well, because it's the things that I think in general, people don't have enough like trust in their intuition to just like do something creative without it being like validated by like some other guru or like coach. But I think like things like that where you just like think it's a good idea because it makes sense to you, like just do it and try it. But like I do think that's a really, really good idea. And that's like those kind of traditional client acquisition methods, like those, like that gets done. That used to be like one of the main methods of client acquisition, is like sending physical letters and doing things like that. And so and now that most people don't do that, that would be like a pattern interrupt, and that would like set you apart significantly, because hardly anyone does that. So 100%, I think that would be a great idea. And because like you actually can do that with local businesses, because obviously they've got a lot of physical locations. So 100%, yeah, that would work really well.
Awesome. Maybe you can try and let me know how it works.
Yeah, you have to send me the link to whatever that company is.
Yeah. Cool. Then just staying on this topic, talking now about the actual sales process. Have you found that the agents that you speak to are quite well versed in marketing as far as selling to them? So I've always found that e-com owners traditionally, I think, are more difficult to sell to because they have some subject knowledge. Either they run ads in the past, or they've tried to do it and they've learned about it, or they've worked with other agencies, which makes it a lot harder to sell to them, especially if you have no idea what you're talking about. Have you found that agents kind of know enough about marketing to ask the hard questions? And also, someone spoke to me recently and he basically said everyone has a predetermined idea of how they want to get there. Because with what we do, you could run Facebook ads, you could run Google ads. And he basically brought up this concept of a lot of agents or people don't want to do Facebook ads anymore because they've been burned on it in the past. And so they now believe TikTok is like the way to go. So it's much easier to sell them TikTok ads, even if it's not ideally what would work for them. So I'm curious what you think to that.
Yeah, it's kind of like you have to sell people what they want and then give them what they need. It's like people always have an idea of how they want their problem solved. Everyone knows what their problem is and what their desired outcome is, but yeah, a lot of people can have in their head the way that they want that the way that they want to receive that transformation. And you're 100% right. Like between ecom and like local business clients, ecom business owners are a lot more like involved in understanding of digital marketing because it's so much more directly like correlated and integrated within their business. Whereas local businesses that are like owner operators or like sales professionals, like real estate agents, their day-to-day is a lot more removed from digital or social media marketing. And so their business doesn't require them to have an understanding of that. Therefore, like, why would they? And so, when I was first like starting out, no one, like, you would never be having a conversation about like yes or no to Facebook ads, or like, talking about, them comparing you to another agency or like they'd heard about someone doing a similar thing. It was just like you were trying to convince them, one, like why Facebook, and like two, like just getting them to understand like why Facebook ads in the first place in general. And you were not even selling them on your service. You were just like selling them on just like the concept of Facebook ads. Whereas now like the market's a lot more sophisticated, and because like especially real estate is definitely one of the more competitive and popular niches because it's a big pool of potential clients, and it's relatively simple for fulfillment and to get results for. Naturally, like just a lot of people in the space that burn people and just like have shitty services and don't know what they're doing, but just like try and run through the market and get clients to make quick cash, and just create a bad reputation for the industry, which is super annoying. But it just is what it is, and that's kind of just a natural side effect of competitive markets. But now, definitely, like you'd be surprised, there's still so much of the market that like has never run Facebook ads before, because it's a very like, especially real estate, it's a very old and like traditional industry. And so you've got a lot of people that are in the industry that have been around for a long time and like maybe have some resistance to going digital, or like and one of the good things about real estate though, which is like same with ecom, is that there's so many new real estate agents always coming into the market. So there's always like, it's such a big pool of potential clients. And same with ecom, like there's so many new ecom businesses launching all the time. So that's a good thing, that like there's always consistent, fresh new clients. But I think one of the more like impactful dynamics for selling to real estate professionals specifically is that they are like career salespeople, and so you're selling to a salesperson, which like adds a lot of a lot more not complexity, but just I guess makes it harder and raises the bar a bit for how good you are at sales. And I think that was actually like kind of a blessing in retrospect, because I was completely ignorant to that dynamic when I first got into it. And it forced me to like, and because sales was my least favorite thing in the business model, it kind of forced me to get really good at it. And it ended up being the thing that I like had to spend the most time on getting coaching on, to like just understand sales and get good at it. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot more real estate professionals out there now that like are savvy to lead gen and social media strategy and know what questions to ask. But it's still like, there's still a lot of people that have no idea and that are just, that aren't savvy to it at all.
Got it. Do you regret getting good at sales and investing in that coaching and stuff instead of just outsourcing it straight away?
No, because I think it's a really like high leverage skill. And I think that I think like I'm very glad that I've like got the skills to always be able to sell my own stuff. And also it gives me a lot of just like underlying confidence that I know that I could make good money with that skill if everything else went to shit for whatever reason. That at the end of the day, like I've got a high value skill that I could easily make like 15 to 20K a month in a high ticket sales position at any point if I wanted to. And I think that that's just like one thing that kind of stacks onto an abundance mindset and just like keeps you in a good place in the business to just like keep executing and not be worried. On top of like just having a good like war chest of cash in the bank that keeps you in a good frame of mind for being productive in your business, for sure.
Got it. And so speaking now lead gen, have you experimented with pay for lead or pay per sale, something like that? Because you can do that in your space.
Yeah. Yeah, funnily enough, I actually had a meeting with a client this morning that we're doing like a performance like rev share model where they pay per like listing acquired. But in real estate, I don't recommend it in real estate because the sales cycle is longer, and a lot of the conversion is out of your control. Like in pretty much like with a pay, like in lead gen with a performance model, you've got like three options. You've got pay per lead, you've got like pay per appointment, or you've got like pay per sale or like pay per like customer acquired. And I think the way that you execute on that is like different depending on the industry, and depending on what type of service that you want to fulfill. Like it works really well for industries or clients where the sales cycle is significantly shorter, like chiropractors, like med spas, like dental, like cosmetic dentistry, or just like standard dentistry, because a lead acquired to like when the customer is making a decision to make a purchase is significantly shorter than someone like considering selling their home. Like that's a very big decision, and it can take 6 months for a lead to convert. And so you've got a lot less control over that. And so like there's a lot of agencies that have like solar is another big one. Like people have scaled big solar marketing agencies like pay per lead in the solar space for like dental industry, dental niches. Seen a lot of people do like pay per show, like like someone shows up to an appointment. You can charge like $300 to $500 for like an appointment to show up. It just adds more complexity in terms of the fulfillment and the way that you like actually set up that system so that you can track that and that the appointments are getting booked. And for real estate, like specifically when a lot of that the outcome of the sale is reliant on the client type, like if you're working with an individual real estate agent, your client is essentially like a sales rep, and so they're like, we know like how much of a difference a good versus a bad sales rep can make. Like it's like night and day,
make or break.
And so you have to have a really specific and strict like ideal client avatar. And if you are offering like some kind of performance model, you'd have to have like a good amount of data and reference point to know, okay, these types of clients that meet these criteria, we're confident that they're going to be a good fit for a rev share client. Because like we've had some star clients that have made $500,000 in commissions like in a year from our services, that if we did a rev share model, we would have made a lot more than if we were doing our retainer. But we've had a lot of clients that have been nightmare clients, really hard to work with, not gotten good results, that we definitely wouldn't have wanted to make nothing off them if we would, with the amount of time that we spent working with them, even though they didn't get great results, because it's not our fault whatsoever. So yeah, that's the trade-off.
Got it. So perhaps it's very similar to ecom then, because like the general thing that I've seen work is you start off with a low retainer because then it's easier to close the clients, less complexity, test the client in terms of like their product. In real estate, it would be like their conversion, their sales appetite, et cetera. And once you've proven that, okay, this is a decent client, then you make the offer, right? Now we want to scale. And so let's change our structure from, retainer to percentage, which therefore incentivizes all of us to grow, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Now, another question that I get a lot is, have you ever had the objection of competing against yourself? Because like, obviously, if you have 3 real estate agents as clients and they're all like in the same city, I imagine there's some overlap there. So how do you go about dealing with that, both from service delivery and sales?
Do you mean competing with yourself from like an agency client standpoint, or for like
So like,
coaching agency owners as well?
No. So I mean, like from your agency clients, like if you're speaking to 3 real estate agents and all of them are in, say, the Sydney suburb, obviously they're competing for like the same buyers, kind of, right? Because it's all like relatively close. So is there a limit to like how many clients you can have in a specific area before it's like my ads are competing against my ads just in different client accounts?
Yeah. So the way that we do it is like, and real estate's a bit unique because it's like, I mean, most local businesses, it's like geography based.
Yeah.
But the way that we do it is each client that we work with is claiming 3 suburbs. So like 3 postcodes and suburbs, whereas like Sydney is an entire city with like over 1 million population size, and like, an individual real estate agent is delusional if they think that they're, capitalizing on the entire real estate market of Sydney. One real estate agent can't even, capitalize on the market share of one suburb. And so the way that we like kind of define our exclusivity with clients is like we're exclusive with you among these like 3 primary suburbs that you're wanting to gain market share over. And then we don't work with any other clients inside of those 3 core suburbs, which might be like, it might only be in total a like 6 to 8 kilometer radius, and then that, significantly increases your capacity to take on clients.
Got it. Okay. So you're defining it by zip code, which is good because from an ads perspective, that's easy to manage.
Yeah.
Cool. And then let's just shift to service delivery because you brought it up a few times. What do you do in a situation, or how do you handle the fact that you are not at the end of the day responsible for the sale? Because you can be funneling a lot of leads, but if they're terrible at closing, then nothing's going to happen. And the same thing is also, like you mentioned, long lead cycles. So the client's paying you monthly, but they might only see a return from this month's work 6 months down the line, right? So how do you deal with that as an agency from a service delivery perspective, and also like retaining clients?
Yeah. So I think the vast majority of it comes down to not actually like changing too much about your actual fulfillment, but about bringing on the right clients. And it's surprising how many real estate professionals don't understand their own industry, that like it's a long-term sales cycle industry and it takes a long time to convert, because some people are just like used to, they just like service the leads that their brokerage or their agency sends them, which are just like inbound leads that have come from a website inquiry, and they think that that's how you get business, and they've never serviced, like they've never done any marketing to generate or build a database, and they've just got no context of like how scaling up sales and marketing actually works. So part of it is just like, having clear criteria on who your ideal client is, not just like from current business stage or business figures, but like their, psychological characteristics of like, are they, do they have entrepreneurial tendencies? Are they growth oriented? Are they understanding? Are they open-minded? Like, and just getting really clear on who is our ideal client type that understands what it actually takes to win with a system like this and doesn't have unrealistic expectations. So that's a huge, one of the biggest things is just like attracting the right people. And part of that is like your positioning of your service, and how much like your pricing of your service, like pricing out, just nightmare low ticket clients. And that goes a long way to bringing on the right clients, retaining the right clients. Then like your onboarding process, definitely like, I remember like another Alex Mosey clip, how he was saying how like your onboarding process contributes to like 80% of your client retention, because like that you're a prospect or a buyer will make up their mind of like what they think of their purchase decision or their experience working with you, from like when they gave you money to when they got onboarded. And so I think your onboarding experience needs to be very dialed in and needs to be a great experience to kind of set the tone of what your service is in terms of setting expectations, as well as just having good customer service and creating a good experience. Because even if your service is good, if they started out the experience in the relationship in a negative manner, and that's in their mind, that they're filtering everything going forward through like an initial negative experience, then that can just like create a negative feedback loop and just decrease performance from there on out in all aspects. So the onboarding process is definitely like a huge it is a huge part from like setting expectations, but yeah, like I said, just having a good client experience. And then I think having good like support and resources on the back end for your clients. Like one of the things that we did is we created like a bit of a client university with just like a mini course for our clients that covered topics like, that explained like the higher level marketing strategy of what we're actually executing on, and just set expectations really clearly so that they like understood what we were implementing. That gave them training on like appointment setting, and like gave them scripts to use, and gave them like SOPs and daily workflows, and gave them the training on pipeline management and things like that, so that they had everything there, and there was no excuses.
Do you have someone enforcing all of that? So like someone who like goes to the client and be like, why are you not following up with these leads? Like, do you have someone chasing them?
Yeah, not super intensely, but we've got a client success manager that like, answers questions, like keeps in touch with them, like answers questions daily, and then we'll update and check in with clients weekly. And then we have like monthly strategy sessions, and just have KPIs, like performance-based KPIs, that they're accountable to as well, so that we're holding them accountable for like the things that are in their control that contribute to results.
Got it. That leads me to my next kind of question, which I'm curious about, is how you've structured teams. Because from what I've seen, there's really like two ways to go about this. There's the onshore, offshore. So onshore being, someone in first world, so US, Australia, whatever. Offshore being like India, South America. And usually they have like one onshore guy who, speaks good English. And he basically is there to answer questions, get on meetings, be the front face, but not service delivery, because obviously onshore is more expensive. And then you have someone offshore doing the service delivery, who then just connects back to that main guy. So that would be like your success manager, or you hire a couple onshore people who deliver the services as well. And I'm curious how you've structured your teams.
Yeah. So is this like just for the fulfillment team or the entire team?
Both, I suppose, because you would probably have like an onshore, offshore for sales as well, doing like lead scraping or something like that.
Yeah. So yeah, pretty much like exactly that. Like every team member that is client facing is onshore, and every team member that's not is offshore. And so our like media buyer that does most of our like client setups, campaign launches, like ongoing campaign management optimization, they're offshore. And our client success manager is onshore. Our like appointment setter and our sales rep is onshore, local to Australia as well. And then we've got a main virtual assistant that's like kind of all round admin and does a bunch of stuff in the agency. So yeah, they're offshore as well.
And so your media buyer, is he not getting on client calls and interfacing with clients? That's all. Have you noticed a drop off then? Because like this is something that I'm experiencing in my agency. Like, have you noticed like if the success manager is on the call and the client has questions about campaigns and he's not the one running it, it's kind of that back and forth information, right? Like I hear things from the client, then I take it to the media buyer, wait for feedback. Then have you noticed that as a problem?
Yeah, I think it depends on your service. And I think that the main service that we've been selling is like a very simple version of the service that there's not too many moving parts, and the clients that we're working with, like we're kind of positioning it that they don't like want to be like super involved, and they just kind of want the system running, and they don't want to hear from us very often. And so that's like part of the positioning of the main service that we've been selling, and so it doesn't require that. But going forward, like I like what I want to be moving the agency into is, because that definitely does add some operational complexity. And it's just like unnecessary moving pieces, and there is breakdown in communication. And so moving forward, I definitely would rather have a media buyer / like digital strategist position where they're like in charge of just like everything to do with the client fulfillment in terms of onboarding, like fulfillment, ongoing, communication and like strategy sessions and retention. But you have to have a service that you can charge enough so that you can obviously compensate for a role like that, which is more probably like a more high level role that for a position that you'd have to pay someone more for.
Yeah. Because I mean, I've experienced certainly like most people, like, because I think you have quite a lot of like US clients as well. And usually they don't like speaking to like people in the back end delivering these services. They'd much rather speak to someone who's like Australian or American, like front facing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've noticed that bias. I certainly have seen it.
Yeah.
Cool. From what I understand, you have stopped all organic outreach methods and you're just doing paid. And I'm curious as to why.
It wasn't because like organic wasn't working whatsoever. It was just that paid was working so well that it just didn't need our time to be like maintaining organic, and it was just way easy. Like once you've got paid dialed in, like it's way easier just to like change the number in the ad account and spend more than it is to like update your script and hire another virtual assistant and make sure that they're trained and make sure that they're doing their job right. And having someone manage that than it is to just like turn up the number on the ad spend. So that was like literally it was just easier, and it was just and it's just working really well. So like, why not? And we were able to fill up like our client capacity very, very quickly. And the quality of the calls as well, and the quality of the prospects that you attract is much higher through paid ads, because like organic outbound, you're it's cold, and you're not qualifying people based on their intent, because you're reaching out to people just like purely based on the fact that they are in the category of your client type. And then people that end up getting on a call, the only thing that they've experienced of your business is a cold message. And whereas, someone that's coming through an ad, there's so much more intent there because they're inbound, they're coming to you, they've seen a piece of content, they've, watched a VSL, they've watched a funnel, maybe they've been redirected back to your like other organic content platforms. There's more social proof, there's more trust there. By the time they get on a call, they're a lot warmer. And the quality of the clientele is a lot better. Not to say that organic doesn't work whatsoever. Like I think it should be executed on, and it's a good like diversification of your client acquisition, because things can change with ads very quickly. Like, Facebook can change something, ad costs can go up. Like, it might be a new platform that starts working a lot better that you have to kind of learn and transition over to. And so I think it's very good to have organic, and the fact, because I've done organic, like I know it really well and I can do it at any point and I've learned it. And so if something was to happen, or like, we're struggling to make our ads perform, we dial that back in and we get it up and running again. But that's the only reason that we're not doing it right now.
Yeah. And I also think like if you've done organic first, you often figure out what language to use, what offer positioning to place yourself, so that when you go to ads, you leverage a lot of that into ads. I don't know if you did that. Like you basically just took what worked on organic and then just put money behind it. I think people jump to paid before they've actually proven anything, and you can lose a lot of money very quickly, at least from what I've seen.
No, 100%. Because like you can test, it's definitely not like exactly the same, but you can test the messaging and you can test the content without ad spend, and you can get validation on like what terminology, what phrasing, what messaging is working without having to spend money to validate it. So I think it makes a lot of sense to do it first.
Awesome. Cool. So we've spoken about delivery, clients. Now I kind of want to talk more about like you as the actual agency owner and things. So in prep for this, I went and I watched some of your other podcast episodes that you've done. You mentioned that your original goal was to sell your agency for a couple multiples. I'm curious, is that still, because that was a few years ago, is that still your goal? Because like I've seen it quite difficult to sell these type of businesses because a lot of the roads lead to you and really it's client roster. So is that still your goal, or? has
It's
things
definitely
changed?
not the priority. Yeah, it's definitely not the priority anymore, because I think like I think it's good to like begin with the end in mind and be thinking about building a business that could be sold, because I think that if you're following that mental framework, you end up building a better business at the end of the day. But it's not the ultimate goal of the business. I'm kind of like treating my agency as just like the cash cow and cash flow producer to fund my just like my overall like personal goals of like personal wealth creation and financial freedom. And not that that's the only goal of my agency. Like I'm passionate about building a good business that like has a good product for the end consumer. But that like it's definitely not like the primary end vision to like to sell the agency. Yeah, I think that I still see opportunities to create versions of the agency that are maybe more sellable with like, you know, elements of software or transitioning into something that could be sold. But I think just I honestly don't have much clarity around it. And I've always the agency business model is just like the thing that I've been doing for the longest time. And it's the business model that I understand the most. And I'm have the most amount of confidence that I'll always be able to make good money from it. And it's a business model that's going to be around for a very long time. So yeah, that's kind of my general vision, is just that I'm always going to be running an agency just because it's such a good business model. It's not going anywhere. It's very scalable. You can do it. You can be very involved in it as the founder, and you can scale it up really well, but you can also be pretty passive with it and still make really good money with it with a good team in place. Like right now, like I'm a lot more passionate around spending my time on doing more like on like working directly with agency owners, helping agency owners grow, or like working on other different types of projects. And so that's where I want to be spending more of my time over the next couple of years, and kind of just like maintaining the agency, making it more profitable. Yeah, just kind of getting smarter with the types of services that we're offering. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I believe in this like natural transition that I've seen where like you start off as a generalist consultant doing anything, building sites, copywriting, like anything. Then you become specialized in your niche and you get good and you build a cash flow business. Then you productize, right? Which is either you transition to info or you build SaaS within your agency or something like that. And then you go the generational wealth, crypto, real estate, whatever. I think that's like the general slope that I've kind of seen everyone go through pretty much. Awesome. So a couple other questions. One thing I really have liked about you as I got to know you is you've definitely spent a lot of money on training, coaching, and courses.
Sure.
And the question that I have is there a fine line? And what's your opinion on learning from lots of people versus just studenting under one person? Because I think if you learn from a lot of people and you have a lot of voices going on, that can be just as much a problem as it is kind of a help. So I'm curious how you've navigated that.
Yeah, I definitely think that that's probably something that held me back and slowed me down, is thinking that the person that I did coaching from, that they didn't have the best knowledge and that like it wasn't the right thing for me, and then thinking that I needed something different, when really I wasn't just taking people's advice and executing on it enough. And so I think that, and that's a bit of maybe like a personal like ego thing or limiting belief thing, that you like, why wouldn't you just take someone's advice that's further along than you and just do what they say? But I think that I had a lot of like resistance to taking people's advice because I didn't think it was like applicable to my situation for whatever, which is totally wrong. But I think that's why I don't think I've done more coaching than I needed to, but I think that I definitely think that, yeah, I could have done maybe less and maybe spread it out a bit more. I don't know. But I think one of the things that I have done that I haven't seen as many people do, which maybe is a bit not super unique whatsoever, but like I think that a lot more people should do, is I went through probably almost like a 2-year period where I didn't do any courses and I didn't do any like coaching programs, no masterminds, nothing like that. And all I did was just like one-on-one consulting calls, like direct with people that weren't actually traditionally selling a consulting or a coaching program, and they were just like agency owners executing in the space. And I think that that's like a really good thing to do, because often like not like dismissing coaches or courses or whatever, because like I have a coaching program as well, like, but I think that you need to diversify who you're learning from, like different people, different types of people. You'll learn different things from them. I remember like one of my mentors, before I even got into like the business space, they asked me a question. It was like, who would you rather learn from if you were going to try and be the best in the world at golf? Tiger Woods or Tiger Woods' coach? And then it's like, I don't know.
That's a tough one.
Yeah. And then the answer is both. Like, you should learn from both, because like one's the executor, one's like they're actually doing it. And then one person like has the perspective of, of actually like analyzing the game and like, being like and observing on the outside. And both perspectives, I think, are equally as important. So I think like everyone should like being good courses, being good masterminds, work with good coaches, and then also like learn directly from like people that are currently like where they want to be and actually executing in the business model as well, like to the full extent. Because the reality is like, I'm an agency owner, but I'm also doing a course in the coaching program because I'm really passionate about that. But if I was just an agency owner doing nothing else, I would be further along as an agency owner, and I would have more practical, like technical understanding and knowledge, and be further along as an agency owner. But like when you do more coaching and consulting, you've got a unique perspective, because you speak to more agency owners, people. And you can observe more situations at scale, and you pick up on things that an agency owner that's maybe further along wouldn't have picked up on. And so you provide value in different ways. So it kind of balances out. So that's my perspective.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, when I made like the content for my program, and when I get on the Q&A calls, selfishly, I genuinely think it actually helped me more than anyone else, because like it forces you to really think through why is certain things working when you have to explain it to someone else. So selfishly, I think it's actually a massive value add. Now, speaking for the people, not the beginners, but the people who are doing quite well, most people build up the agencies, build some cash flow, and then they start traveling and things. So the last question before I go into our rapid fire ones is, what has your experience been like traveling with a partner while building an agency? Because a lot of people do the travel thing while they're building an agency. It's the luxury we have. But I think living with a partner, especially if that person is entrepreneurial or not, is a very different experience. And I'm curious because, a lot of people would say that's distraction, don't date until you like 26, 30. And other people would say have a bit of a blend. So I'm curious, what has your experience been like traveling with a partner and then obviously living with her as you have traveled? And how has that affected your business?
So I think I definitely think it would be harder in like the building phase, but like I've like built the agency to a good place where I've got like a team in place, and it can still like grow and thrive without me being as involved. And so from like the agency standpoint, because like through COVID, like we weren't able to travel whatsoever, and so it's kind of forced to just grind for like a 2-year period and like just get the business to it. And as a result of that, got the business to a place where like it can run a little bit more without me. And I think in general, like in terms of that whole, like, should you like have a relationship if you're just trying to grow a business or not? It definitely depends on the type of person. And I think that there's like a lot of arguments for and against. And I think that a lot of people have bad relationships and a lot of people have good relationships, and a good relationship will like, and it depends like on what type of lifestyle that you want to be living. Like, I think that if you're single because you want to be focusing on your business, but you're always on Instagram speaking to girls, and you'll feel the need to go out every weekend, and you're drinking more alcohol than you would have been otherwise, and you're more distracted, then it's a bad thing. If you're in a relationship that's like a bad relationship where your partner doesn't understand your goals and doesn't give you any freedom and isn't, on your side and and you're not working together to like achieve the goals, then it's a bad thing. But because like having a partner that like it can be a lot of distractions removed, because like, women can be a big distraction if you're single, and so it goes both ways. And so I think it's dependent on like your personal circumstances and like what you actually, the lifestyle that you want to be living. And then also like if you're in a relationship and you're like thinking about that, it's like, well, is your relationship good or bad? Or if you're thinking about getting into a relationship, well, it's like, it's a good idea if it's a good relationship and that's the lifestyle you want to be living. It's a bad idea if it's a bad relationship and that's not the lifestyle you want to be living.
Yeah. I think to your point, people completely underestimate how unproductive they are because they're not in a relationship, because you're constantly seeking it out, right? But in the same sense, if you have a toxic relationship, it's damaging. So it's a very tricky one, I suppose.
Of course.
Just difficult to answer. Cool. All right. So I always end off these episodes with the same 3 rapid questions, very quick questions, short answers. And it's good to get like every guest's kind of like different perspectives on the same thing. So you ready?
Sure. I don't know what I'm ready for, but sure.
Question 1. What do you know now that you wish you knew earlier when you were starting?
A lot. Probably that get other people's help sooner. Definitely.
Okay.
Like, get like a team. Like you will get to the next stage in your business because of your team, not just you. So I definitely would emphasize that. There's so many things, like learn paid ads quicker and spend money on paid ads for yourself for your own business sooner, as quickly as possible, as it makes sense. Sell more expensive stuff and work with premium clients. Yeah.
Got it. Good answers. Question 2. What do you see as the biggest opportunity in the market right now? Like in general, if you were to start a new business from scratch today, like, and what niche and things, like what's your biggest opportunity you can see? Because I feel like every entrepreneur who's like in the trenches has those things that like, if I was to restart again, this is probably what I would do. Like everyone has that like idea.
I think like if I was starting from scratch again in the agency business model or just in general?
Just in general.
I don't know. Like, I think like what I kind of divert to is like what is like the highest leverage things, like based on my skill set right now. And like the types of things that I think about is like maybe doing things that are more like investment oriented, or doing things that are more like equity oriented, like taking equity in other businesses where I can like add value and like flip, like do flipping of businesses or things like that. I think like long term, that's the type of thing that I'd want to move into, is like acquiring and like adding value and like exiting businesses in industries where like my skill set is aligned with that, like marketing agencies, like, I don't know. Yeah, that's kind of the general category of what I would be thinking about.
Got it. Okay. And then final question, what are you currently working on that you're most excited for?
Definitely my mastermind for agency owners. That's like what I'm spending most of my time on building. And yeah, I've kind of gone through a cycle of like first like year and a half, 2 years of executing my agency, like just only focusing on the agency. And then I did a little bit of coaching, and then like spent another 2 years just like with my head down and only focusing on the agency. And I kind of just like coming back around where like realizing like I'm a lot more like aligned and passionate working with agency owners and just have like a lot of value to add. And so that's like the thing that I'm most excited about spending most of my time on at the moment.
Amazing. yeah, it's always good to see like once someone who's done it then like passes the information back, because I truly believe like that's the best way to make progress like in the world, and also like just happiness wise, like help the people behind you who were where you used to be and trying to get where you are now. Amazing. Well, I think that's a wrap for this episode. 100%. Again, Liam, thanks for being here. Really appreciate your time. This was an awesome episode. And to everyone who's listening, cheers for watching. If you enjoyed, subscribe, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, pretty much everywhere. Got some awesome guests coming up, and we'll see you in the next one. Right, so that's a wrap for this episode. Cheers for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And if you did, I went ahead and picked another one of my videos, which you should be able to watch right now. And with that being said, I'll see you in the next one.